Hello everyone, welcome to AWS Tutorials. In AWS Tutorials, you learn about AWS services. Today we are talking about part 5 of AWS Glue optimization series. So let's get started. Optimization is a pretty advanced topic, so it is expected that you know about AWS Glue jobs and lake formation, and you also know how you can use PySpark to create the Glue job. If you are comfortable with these topics, then you can simply move ahead. If not, then I'm going to provide you two links in the description box, which you can use to learn the fundamentals of AWS Glue and lake formation, and also how to use PySpark to create the Glue job. So please make sure that you have these prerequisites in place. Also, this optimization series I am creating with certain thinking in mind. So if you can go through the part 1 of the optimization series and just go through first 6 minutes so that you understand how I am organizing this whole series, because that will help you get your head around these topics pretty easy, and how I have organized the whole concept. So with this prerequisite in place, you can then move forward to the topic. So today's technique is, if you are doing large scale data processing, like some kind of historical data you want to process, or some kind of batch job you want to process at certain frequency, certain schedule, then how you can do workload partitioning of your batch processing to improve the scalability of your processing. So this is the optimization we are going to talk today, and I will start. It might look very cryptic today, but well, what I've said so far might look very cryptic, but once I explain, it will become very simplified for you. So let's understand what is the use cases of large scale data processing. Generally, in my experience, I have seen two use cases. One use case is someone is trying to ingest or process first time a large scale of data. So you are trying to, you bring your data and you want to the data platform, and you want to process first time all the data you have so far. So in such cases, you will come across scenario where you have huge backlog of data which has to be processed in order to bring them onto the platform. That's the one use case I have seen. Other use case I have seen is where you're doing some scheduled large scale data processing. So like every month end, you are bringing a month of sales data to the system and you want to process it, or a month of purchase orders and you want to process it. So these are the two scenarios I have seen, where whether you are trying to bring your data first time to the platform and you want to do a huge backlog of data processing for that, or if you want to do some scheduled large scale data processing like every month, every 6 months, or even every year. In that case, you do large scale data processing. Now, what is the challenge with such a large scale data processing? One of the problem I have seen, and now the problem is mostly with the approach, is that people want to process this data in one go in one job. So people will say, okay, I'm going to process while running just one job, and this job will simply process all the backlog of data for me. The challenge with such approach is that, first of all, there is a very high chance that you will run out of the memory. When you're running a single glue job to do a backlog of data processing, then there's a big chance that you will run out of the memory. And you cannot do incremental progress. So you can't say, okay, let me, like for instance, suppose you are bringing your data for the first time to the platform and you have like 5 years of the data, and you say every month I want to do a like incremental every month. So for instance, I first bring 1 month of data, and then that data, once I process and bring in, then I can do some follow-up workflow or processing on that while rest of data is still onboarding. So if you want to build a pipeline where you want to do incremental processing chunk by chunk, and feed into your pipeline, it is not possible, because you are doing one job to process all the data. And such job take very long time to process, because literally I'm talking about probably gigabytes of terabytes of data to process. And if they fail at the last moment, then you might have to start again, because it will be hard for you to track where exactly it failed, and you have to probably start again the same long process. So these are some of the challenges you see if you try to process your whole data in a single job in a single run. So you might have thought already, but what is the solution? The solution is you partition your data, you batch process your data. And how do you do that? So basically you decide a chunk of data which you want to process once, then another chunk, and then another chunk. And this batch processing could be partition either based on data size. Suppose you have got like terabytes of data, but you are saying that, okay, at one point of time, I'm not going to process more than, say, 1 gigabytes of data or half gigabytes of data, and then I will do 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times to complete the processing. Or you can also do based on the files. So you say I have like 10 million files with me, but at one point of time I'm not going to process more than 10,000 files. And that way you can do batch processing or workload partitioning to actually successfully process your data without getting into situation where you're running out of resources like compute threads or your memory, or really a long time before you can see a result out. So how do I do this in Glue Job? Such batch processing or workload partitioning is supported in Glue Job. One of the constraint or not so constraint is that you can do such batch processing on S3 based data only. That means if you're doing some kind of first time ingestion or data processing, then you have to first upload your data to the S3 bucket, and then you can use Glue Job to do some processing on the data. Or if you're trying to do some kind of monthly or bi-monthly or 6-monthly scheduled data processing, then first you have to bring your data to the S3 bucket, and then you can use Glue Job to process it. And Glue Job supports workload processing. That means you can configure Glue Job to not to process data in one go, but process a part of data in one run. And that way you can partition your whole big chunk into small problems, small data, and make them successful individually. And that way you complete the whole end-to-end processing. And that is very beneficial for you as well, in the sense that instead of like waiting for say 2 days or 3 days or something like that to let Glue Job finish the data processing, basically you can see your incremental data getting processed, so you can do any follow-up task with that incremental data processed, and that way you're not waiting for your whole Glue Job to finish in one go, but whatever incremental data processing the Glue Job is giving to you, you can do a follow-up pipeline action or things with that data to keep your work going, rather than waiting for this whole data to be processed in one go, where there's a high risk that you will hit some kind of resource constraint. So how do I do such batch processing using Glue Job? Basically, there are 3 steps involved, and it's pretty straightforward actually, to be honest. First is you tell Glue Job that it does not need to process all the data, but it needs to do batch processing. And that batch processing it can do either based on number of files it has to process in one go, or the data size in bytes it has to process in one go. Second, you enable job bookmark. Since you are not, so let's go through first one first. Okay, so how do I tell Glue Job that it has to not to process all data, but it has to process only part of data, a batch of data? By putting this, so I'm using, so when you read data from your data source, actually you don't read the entire data, but you read just part of data. And so you can see here I'm using this from catalog method, which we use to read data from catalog. And in this case, the catalog data is in S3 bucket. So I'm simply providing my database name and table name, and this table is representing your data in S3 bucket. And then we simply add one more additional option parameter called bounded files, and the value is 500 in this case. So this is a file count based batch processing. That means you're saying to Glue Job that don't process all the data, but just process the data in the count of 500 files. So first process 500 files, then another 500 files, and then another 500 files. Or there's another method where another option, which is use bounded size, where you can provide your data size in bytes. Okay, so two choices you have, whether you provide a file count or whether you provide a bounded size. How do I choose these methods? Generally, the guidelines is that if you have small file, very large number of files, then you choose based on bounded files, because that way you can tell, okay, out of those 10 million files, you process only 10,000 files in one go, or 1,000 files in one go, not more than that. If you have a small number of files, but data files are quite big, in that case, it is recommended you provide a bounded size. So that way you tell that, okay, I'm not going to process, I'm going to process these many bytes of data in one go, and then rest I'll process when I run next time. So that's the first step you do. You batch based on file count and data size. Then you need to enable job bookmark, because your Glue Job is not going to process all your data in one go. It's going to process your data in multiple goes. So Glue Job need to know what data is already processed, so it does not reprocess it again. And that is possible through enabling job bookmark in the Glue Job. So simply go to the advanced properties, say I want to enable job bookmark for this Glue Job, and that way you tell Glue Job that when it runs multiple time in a batch processing, it does not reprocess any data which is already processed. And third, you simply run your job multiple times, because since you're only processing a part of the job in one go, that means you have to run multiple times in order to complete the whole data processing. Now, how do I run this job multiple times? There are various approaches people can take. They can run this job multiple times by running some kind of code, which is simply rerunning the job again and again and again. Yeah, people can do that, though I don't like this approach much. You can also schedule your job. So you can say, okay, you can suppose you're doing a monthly processing, and then suppose a batch processing takes 10 minutes, and generally you have to run 15 times before the data gets processed. Then you can simply schedule your jobs like, okay, run for one job, then after 10 minutes another job, then after 10 minutes another job. People can do that as well. Again, something which I don't prefer much. And the third one is where you can do AWS step function, where you can simply run a job multiple times based on data size or file count and that kind of information, and then you can run your Glue Job multiple times and to do the batch level processing. So how do you build your multiple job runs? It very much depends on how do you want to build your business logic and what a business requirement is. But these are three options available, and my personal preferred option is step function, where I can really run a long running workflow in step function, and this workflow can actually run this job multiple times to do a batch processing of my data. Okay. So you saw that how you can, when you're trying to read your data from your S3 bucket using catalog, you can provide additional parameters to tell how many files to process in one go. That's the one way of enabling batch processing. Another way is you can also provide a catalog table parameter, and if in catalog table parameter, if you provide either bounded size in bytes or either bounded files as one of the parameter, as one of the properties, then you don't need to put that into the code of the glue job like I showed you in the earlier example. When the glue job runs, when it look at this property, the glue job will know that, okay, I don't need to process this table entirely. I need to process based on the bounded file or bounded size mentioned over here as a part of the catalog table parameter. So either of two methods you can use to enable batch processing of your data using glue job with the catalog table. Okay, so it was a very small and quick topic, so time for a demo. What we are going to do here in demo is that I have some data in S3 bucket, which I have, which is like a customer's travel profile data. So I'm going to simply catalog that data in like a customer profile in. Then I'm going to run this glue job, which will be enabled for batch processing. I will manually run it in this case, by the way. Sorry for that, I'm not using any automation for a demo, but I will run it multiple times to show how it is doing batch processing for you. It will do some simple transformation, and then after that transformation, it will write data to this out folder over here, which is then cataloged. So I'm going to run this process where you will see a large chunk of data will be like I've got roughly 1,000 records, but I'm going to simply process only say 25% of the records at one time, kind of thing. So that's how I'm going to batch process. So let's jump to the AWS console to see the demo. So what I have done here in my AWS console is that I have an S3 bucket where I have put two folders. One is customer's profile in and one is customer profile out. And if I go to my customer profile in, you can see I have got some 20 records where I have got some Parquet based data available to me. I'll show you the schema of data very soon. Actually, it's in fact, it's in catalog. So if I go to my AWS Glue, if I go to my tables, and I should see my anytime now. Yeah, you can see my customer profile in. If I go over there, this is how the schema of the data look like, which I'm going to process today, and I've got roughly 9,054 records in my customer profile. Now, then I have got this customer profile out, which is the output location, which is right now empty. You can see here, there's no files over there because I have not run the glue job yet. And if I want to see the schema of the output profile, like customer profile out, I'm just fetching two fields, income, class, and age, as a part of my data processing or example processing. Good. Now I go to Athena, and here I can see my records. So if I run my query on select count star from customer profile in, if I run this, I see roughly 954 records. And if I run a second query where say show me count star from customer profile out, where the output of my batch processing will come, right now it is 0. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to create a glue job, which will simply do batch processing of customer profile in and will write to the customer profile out. So I go to Glue Studio here. I go to left hand side menu, jobs. I want to create a job, and in this case I want to actually I have a script already ready, so I'm simply going to use Spark script editor to create the glue job. So it will give me a boilerplate code here, which I can simply remove, and I go to my my notepad and I copy paste my code from here. Let me do that, then I will explain you the code. Oops, come on. Okay. Come back. Okay. Okay, let me go back to script. Okay, something went wrong. Let me try again. Yeah, jobs. Go to my blank canvas, no, to my Spark editor, and I simply remove this and I paste the code. Okay, let me show you the code. So here I have got my first of all important libraries of Spark context, Glue context, job imported. Then I'm simply starting the Spark context, trying to read my parameters, which is nothing as of now. Then here comes my first part of the code where I'm trying to read data from DojoDB customer profile in into this data frame. And here comes my batch processing instruction, which says out of those 20 files, 20 objects, 20 files, at one point of time, you should be reading only 5. So out of 20, only 5 files you should read, not more than that. Then I'm providing a small, so whatever data frame I get populated here, I'm simply providing a small transformation on that, which is basically I'm using a select field transformation to say select only age and income class. I'm not interested in other fields. I populate that to this data frame. And finally, I use this write dynamic frame method to write this data to this catalog, which is customer profile out, and simply I commit the job. That's pretty straightforward. Important thing here is that by adding this particular option over here, I'm telling the job to basically telling the job to not read the entire table in one go, but simply process only 5 files at one point of time. So let me go to job details here, and I simply put my job name, which will be say Dojo batch job. And then I go to my IAM role and I simply select one of the IAM role I have already created over here. Yeah, there we go. And then I don't touch any of these things. These are all good to me. I make sure that job bookmark is enabled. Okay. And then I'm reducing my number of retries to 0, because for a demo purpose, I try to keep number of retries to 0. That if it fails, I want to know it fast. I don't want retry to work. But if you are running for production environment, of course, you want to keep your number of retries to a higher number, higher than 0, because you want to make sure that your job finishes. So I save it. So my so I have told in code the job to do batch processing. I have enabled job bookmark, and then I am good to go and run the code. So let me run this job. So this job is going to run now, and when it finishes, it's going to basically it's going to do only a part of data processed, not the entire table. So let's wait for this job to finish, and then we can go to the Athena and check how many records it has processed in the first go. So let's wait for the job to finish. Okay, so you can see the job has succeeded. Now if I go to Athena, and if I go to my second query, which is I want to count customer's profile out, and if I run it, so remember in customer profile in, like source, I have got 954 records, but if I go to my customer profile out, and I run it this query, it shows only 238 records, which is roughly one-fourth of 394 record, the source record. So you can see it has not processed my job entirely, but it has processed only part of my job, and which is basically 5 files out of 20 files. Now if I go to my Glue console again, Glue Studio again, and say I want to run this job one more time. So I'm going to run this job one more time. So now it should process next 5 files out of 20. So let's wait for this job to finish again. Okay. So you can see the job has finished processing again. If I go back to Athena and run remember the 238 records were processed in the first go. If I run this query again to see how many new records I have got, actually you can see now I've got 474 records. So I've got 238 records more, or more or less. Those may records more. So similarly, I can run it actually 2 more times, and that way I can get all of my 954 records processed, and after that, don't need to run a job again. Even if you run it, it will not do anything because it has processed all the records. So, and since job bookmark is enabled, it's not going to reprocess already processed job. So you can see here, this was example how you can write a batch processed job to basically do partitioned processing of your data than doing the whole processing of your data in one go. So that was all for today, guys. Hope you liked the video, and if you like, please click on the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. We always look forward to your feedback, whether it is for any new content or to correct any of the mistakes I have done, or if you want to discuss any of the architecture or design topic about AWS. Please feel free to provide your feedback in the comment section. I always look forward to your comments. I promise to come back again in a week's time with another such video and tutorial. In the meantime, please stay safe and have a nice day. Bye-bye.